Hi, what I'd like to show you today is how to add a new sample into the Strabo microsystem. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a new sample in this top left-hand corner of the screen. And when we add a new sample, it asks us for a bunch of information about the sample itself. So I'm going to fill that in now. Okay, so now that we've put in that information, we're going to load our reference micrograph. The reference micrograph is used as a base map on which all other observations are put. When we upload a reference micrograph, we can load data, metadata in a couple different ways. One, we can simply load metadata from a previous spot that we've put in, or we can look up an instrument from the instrument database, and that'll input all the metadata about that instrument. So for this example, I'm going to load the metadata from a previous image, and I'm going to modify it for the current image. So in this case, the image type doesn't have the gypsum plate in, it's a plain polarized light image. Now all the metadata has been automatically filled based on the spot that I loaded it. Now we're going to give this a name. So now it's going to load the reference micrograph into the system. And what we'll have to do is set the scale. So in this case, it's an unoriented thin section. You can also, if it's an oriented thin section, you can put in the trend and plunge of each surface, or use a fabric reference frame where you input the foliation and lineation and say what orientation you're looking at the sample from. So we'll go unoriented for this thin section. Then it asks us to set the scale. In this case, the thin section is a standard thin section, so I know it's 27 millimeters across. And so I can just draw a line using the line tool down here and input 27 millimeters. Our reference micrograph is now in the system. We can see it on the left-hand side here as a new sample. So what I'm going to do now is add a couple of associated micrographs. So we click on the plus button next to the micrograph that we want to add an associated micrograph to. And then we load the image that we want to add. So in this case, I'm going to load an EBSD phase map. Now we put in the same instrument metadata. So in this case, I'm going to load it from an instrument that's in the instrument database. So I'm going to use this Hitachi SEM from McGill University, which is where I collected this image from. And then I still need to input the data type. So this is an electron backscatter diffraction image, and we're looking at a phase map. Now, the information about the instrument and the detectors is already filled in because I loaded it from the database. And now I can put in information about the settings that I used for collecting the data. Now there's a couple ways that I can locate my micrograph onto my reference micrograph. And in this case, we're going to locate it as a scaled rectangle. But I'm going to stretch and drag it to its correct position because this image doesn't have a scale bar. So this pops up a modal where we can stretch and drag the new image using the four corners, or rotate it using this red dot on the side. And so now I'm going to move this micrograph into its correct location on the reference micrograph. Now, once you have that micrograph in the correct location, you can click Finish. That saves the new image on top of the reference micrograph. So now we can see our phase map clearly located on our reference micrograph. And I'm going to add one more just as an example. All right, so now we have two images, each located on top of a previous image. And so you can really see how this the hierarchical set of images within Strabo Micro. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go to our reference micrograph and input some data about it. And we do that using the tabs on the side. So currently we can add mineralogy data, grain info data, so that's characterizing the size and the shape of the grains, and fabric info. So I'm just going to go through quickly and input data for each of those. I hope this has been helpful in getting you acquainted with Strabo Micro.